Hello Kaiju fans, welcome back to the Kaiju World Order. My name is MM, and once again, this is Monster of the Week, and before we get into it here, I just gotta vent just a little bit, because how in the blue hell did this thing win Monster of the Week when it was up against some other pretty awesome things I would much rather talk about? But you know what? The people have spoken, and Mutavore has won. Yes, Mutavore, that forgettable thing that appeared in Pacific Rim back in 2013 for approximately 30 seconds and died, beat the fucking Death Sword for Monster of the Week. Musa. So, before we get into it here, Mutavore, I actually do like this thing. The design is pretty cool. It's typical Pacific Rim design. And I mean, I really don't know what I mean by that, but if you look at Mutavore, you can tell it fits in Pacific Rim more than it does, say, Godzilla or Gamera or Ultraman or anything else. It's a Pacific Rim kaiju. And it actually does look pretty cool. I like the crescent-shaped blade head, the extra limbs. It's just a severe waste of space for a giant monster. It appears and does nothing. So before we get into it here, what exactly is a Mutavore? I have heard of a carnivore, which of course eats meat. I have heard of a herbivore, which of course eats vegetation. Mutavore implies there is something else out there that this thing eats, which would be mutas. And I'm trying to figure out what a muta is. The only thing that comes to mind is the old school professional wrestler from Japan, the Great Muta, and I'm pretty sure Mutavore is not eating the Great Muta. It's one bad typo away from being a Futavore, and it's another reason why I just can't believe this thing won Monster of the Week. Before I get into the actual appearance of this thing in the movie, I do want to address it does have some appearances outside, just to kind of world build. In the Pacific Rim novelization, the scene is kind of expanded, and instead of just fighting and being killed by Striker Eureka, the Mutavore ends up fighting two other Jaegers and destroys them. And then in the Pacific Rim Aftermath comic, kind of does the same thing again, only this time he only fights one extra Jaeger. Perhaps the other one is still there, who knows, it doesn't really matter. All this stuff is just extra filler. Mutavore itself is one of the biggest nothing burger kaiju of our time. A category 4 kaiju per the Pacific Rim Serizawa scale. Mutavore pops up rather early in the movie. We don't actually see much of it, just from footage being filmed from the Aussie News and shown on the screen in Alaska. But the monster breaks through the so-called impenetrable wall and attacks Sydney. Before it could destroy the city, Striker Eureka, after having just been decommissioned, launched and fought it. They traded some blows before the Jaeger used its anti-kaiju missiles and killed it. Thus, the end of Mutavore, and that was it. That's all it really had to offer. Now, most sources state that December 27th, 2 days after Christmas, is when Mutavore attacks Sydney. The comic Pacific Rim Aftermath, which was a prequel to Uprising, shows it, as I said, fighting Striker Eureka, but before that it fights another, and also in the novelization it also fights the Jaeger Echo Saber. Neither of these events are actually shown in the movie, so if you want to consider them canon or not, it doesn't matter. In the long run, it doesn't matter. The Pacific Rim canon has become so muddled with bullshit since the end of the first movie that it's no point in even keeping up with it. Mutavore's very last and very brief appearance came in Pacific Rim the Black anime series on Netflix. He doesn't actually really appear, we don't see him, but we do see a hologram of him, where it stated that during the Pacific Rim Uprising breaches, Australia is infested with kaiju, and there's literally an army of kaiju that we've seen before, including Mutavore. I believe the other ones were Leatherback and I don't know, I know the other one was Leatherback. But anyway, we don't actually see, again, these things actually do anything. We're just told that a bunch of them marched upon Australia and fought in a war, and then a bunch of them were killed. You would think that if there were that many Mutavores running around Australia, that by the time the series takes place, we'd actually see some, maybe lingering, but we don't. So, that's it. That's what Mutavore is. As for merchandise, yeah, we got a NECA figure, and it was actually pretty cool. It was then retooled into Hardship. honestly, I've been waiting for Super 7 to get the rights for Pacific Rim. If there's any toy company out there that I think would do justice to this franchise, it would be Super 7. They are priding themselves on doing toys that kind of walk the line between a high-end collector item and an actual thing that you can just grab and mess around with. And having the Kaiju and the Jaegers and the Ultimates line would be a dream come true. Doubt it'll happen, but hey, who knows? Or if not for Super 7 doing them, at least Bandai Spirit, to be kind of cool to see them come back to Pacific Rim. They did the Jaegers for Uprising and then some vinyl figures for the Kaiju of it. I would love to see Mutavore and the rest of the Pacific Rim Kaiju in a figure line like that, or if not, just straight up movie monster series. I don't know, I think I'm kind of rambling here because the only stuff that we might get is a McFarlane, and I don't even know if they still do figures anymore. They did a little wave of figures with Jaegers and Kaiju and destructible buildings. I think they included a comic or something in them or something. I don't know. I don't own any of them. They were kind of cheap. They're not what I'm looking for a Pacific Rim toy line. The final part here, what I always cover, how's Mutavore going to handle itself in another universe? It's not. It dies pretty quickly from just some so-called anti-kaiju missiles. I've been trying to figure out how powerful those missiles really are, and I don't find anything about them being anything special. There's no reason, say, a rocket launcher or a submarine or anything couldn't fire those same missiles at Mutavore from a distance and did the whole thing, which that's a big hang up for me when it comes to having so-called anti-kaiju missiles. There's no reason they can't be launched from a typical launcher. Just look at the Godzilla 2000 full metal missiles. They did not need a giant mech to fire. They weren't like Mogera's spiral grenade missiles, where the missiles themselves were like as big as the robot's arms. That's why I don't think Mutavore is going to last very long against anything. And really, Kaiju fans, that's all I can really talk about Mutavore. I've never played the video game. I wish I would have. I do know Mutavore's in it. He's a playable character. From the footage I've seen, they have it where he's able to jump around and use his big back blade thing almost like a pizza cutter, where he's just slicing down. It would have been awesome if he would have done anything like that in the movie or even in the comic. But unfortunately, that's just video game logic. Would love to see that game get a remaster. I mean, we're getting Destroy All Monsters Melee remaster, so hey, why not? Who knows? And until next time, Kaiju fans, peace out. Join the Kaiju Hug Box. You can vote for the next week's monster, and yeah, Minya, take it away.
You should like and subscribe.